back. Though to you it doesn't seem like I was away because I was away for the week, but I filmed the whole week's worth of videos in advance and had those uploaded. And where I was away down on the old seaside, the connection was appalling. So I managed to get all the videos up somewhere quite late, especially yesterday's video, which though I started the upload at about 8 o'clock in the morning of Wednesday, it did not upload until this morning about 11 on Friday. But it's up and we move. Yeah, I'm back. Hence I was at the seaside, hence all the burns. Oops. So while I was away, basically, really nice bookshop. I went into it, bought a few books. Fahrenheit 451, Bell Jar, a collection of Wilfred Owen's poems, and another book that those are the books I might make videos on in the future, but there's just one that I want to talk about now, which is sort of the first edition replica of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Green. And I don't actually want to talk about the book because I haven't actually finished the book yet, and it's not really a book, it's a collection of poems. But this book, what I want to talk about is the actual introduction, which is, if I'm not wrong, before I check, I think it's Malcolm Cowley, which I'm going to check now, who wrote this. Yes, edited with an introduction by Malcolm Cowley. So Malcolm Cowley's introduction is what I'm going to talk about this. So his introduction of Leaves of Green here basically just talks about the position Whitman was in writing this rendition of the book, because if you don't know about Leaves of Green, there's actually about 24 renditions of it, because he released it first in 1855, and then nearly every year for a good few years he went back and edited it and released a slightly different version, and this is basically the first rawest edition of it, replicated from the scholars who have the original. And his introduction speaks about both the position Whitman was in the literary world, where he was mentally when he was writing this, and also about interpretations of the poem. And the big thing that I want to talk about is how in the introduction Malcolm describes people who study Whitman as utterly and completely wrong. He says that their assumptions of Whitman's poems being about American nationalism and American living, and just Whitman is seen as very a figurehead for the figure of society he was. That he was kind of a spokesperson for the roughs of 1800s America. But he makes a comparison in this introduction between namely Songs of Myself, but every poem in general, about how they don't even have any association with what they are most commonly described as meaning, and how he makes this link between these poems and how it seems that Whitman was more likely, instead of describing American social, cultural and political situation, was giving these doctrines of philosophy, specifically Indian and Eastern philosophy, like Brahmanism, but I can't pronounce it, I think it's Brahmanism, but just these theories of karma and the Sanskrit, and just lots of spiritual things beyond physical, not social but literal, like mental discussions of the soul, and being one with earth, and how God is in everything and everyone. I think that's pantheism, but I might be wrong. Which is, of course, are common in some Western civilizations, and lots of the romantic poems of the era just before Whitman would have had these views. But because of who Whitman was, he was like a political writer, people took it as meaning political, but this jump in this introduction saying, wait a minute, if we look at it this way, it's nothing to do with politics. It seems that he was actually spiritual writing. These are about metaphysical experiences, and about how he sees the world and the structure of it behind it being like the universe as one and humans being the same as all that. And really that got me thinking about how much we misinterpret things, like everything, especially with just the age of social media now. We see what we want to see, and in seconds we can look at anything, and how we just take it for face value, and or either face value or the easiest to take in, oh, that makes sense, so we just jump on that. We don't look in. And he cites Malcolm cites a lot of famous books written about Indian spirituality and mysticism, which, you know, if you were just reading these poems, you take them for face value, you wouldn't associate with them, and you wouldn't even want to read them, because, you know, no, there's no way. It makes more sense to be about, you know, being American, living in America, but no, it makes perfect sense this way, but we don't want to look in that way because we're taking the easier path every time, and it's just it's a blockade on our own living if we decide that the only thing we're going to take out of this is what is most obvious. And I know, of course, people do say the simplest answer is probably the right answer, but, you know, sometimes that's not right. Sometimes you do need to look into it, and sometimes you don't just settle on what seems simple, easy, and right in front of you, because you're going to get more out of it if you put more in. That's just maths, basically. The more you give, the more you get. So, and the more accurate the information you get you're going to get if you give more. So I think I'm definitely going to take from this introduction that I might need to go back to certain things in the past that I've read and look at them with new eyes and try and see different ways, because that has definitely got me thinking, how much am I actually misinterpreting? How much am I not associating with the right things and seeing as something completely different? Because a book about American politics and being an American Democrat compared to, you know, the gods of Eastern religion are two very different things, and we're misinterpreting it. Can be dangerous with such extremes of separation. So definitely I need to look a lot more deeper into new things and also old things I just assume to be about what I think they are when they could be far, far from it. So anyway, that's just one little base, you know, how it's so easy to misinterpret and assume the wrong thing. And also read Leaves of Green. I haven't finished it, but I've read, you know, lots of the poems before. I'm a big Whitman fan, so that's just it. Read into things and look into things. Don't just settle on face value.